Welcome back. The continuous fall in global oil prices is impacting on a number of asset classes, including stocks. While I spoke to the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Onyema, at the just concluded World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, he started on an optimistic note, saying it's not all gloom, or it's not all doom and gloom. What we're seeing happening in the financial markets, particularly the equity markets, what are your takeaways from the ongoing meeting?
It's not all doom and gloom. There are several spots that present significant opportunities from the very theme of this year's Davos, which is the fourth industrial revolution, which is really about the convergence of man and technology, if you will. And the opportunities exist to leapfrog our infrastructure deficits, leapfrog the various stages that you'd have had to go through to really drive economic growth. And we've already seen some of that in Kenya. We've seen some of that in Nigeria with the whole mobile phone revolution. And so there are several bright spots. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa, there's the talk now about moving into labor-intensive manufacturing because labor is cheaper in sub-Saharan Africa than in China, for example. And so the whole shift, if you will, of that manufacturing base to sub-Saharan Africa, if we can increase capacity and if we're able to man the various manufacturing plants. So those are all positives. If you look at the capital markets themselves, we've seen significant turnaround in the last 2 or 3 days in the sense that the markets have gone up. I think investors might be realizing that they overreacted on the downside and that the oil prices, they showed a little reversal, are not entirely irrevocably moving in the downward direction. Like I've always maintained, markets generally move in circles, and so the oil market is no exception, and obviously the equity markets are just reflecting the challenges there.
What were the discussions in the transformation in sub-Saharan African markets?
It was really a very positive discussion. There was a lot of support for the fact that there's reform taking hold in Nigeria, from corruption to security challenges, and not only in Nigeria but across sub-Saharan Africa. And good examples were used, such as Rwanda and Ethiopia and the rest of it. Clearly, the nexus between sub-Saharan Africa and China was not lost on anybody. And as I was mentioning earlier on, there's the potential to create about 85 million jobs in sub-Saharan Africa as a result of the shift in labor-intensive manufacturing. That's just an example of the kind of transformation that can happen with the relationship with China. Other discussions that we had really were more technical and were focused on monetary policy and really trying to make the case for adjustment in order to better weather the shocks that we've seen in the global economy. But having said that, everybody also agreed that Africa is not really a country, right? Sub-Saharan Africa is not a country, and you have about 42 different countries at different stages of development, different cultural and domestic issues. And so every country must put that into context as they try to adjust. And then the last thing is, in keeping with the theme of this year's conference on the fourth industrial revolution, the need for Africa to educate people, build the skills, to allow us to take advantage of new trends in technology in order to drive our economies.
I know that the Nigerian Stock Exchange has, in the last couple of years, looked at actually using technology to drive more interest, more investors' confidence and interest back into the market. How's that going so far?
It's still an ongoing project. We are examining the possibility of using telecom to reach millions of people that are not necessarily banked and therefore do not participate in the financial systems today. You could use this to also get inclusiveness for the entire financial system and to drive financial literacy. So it is something that we continue to explore, where we will learn from other regions of the world that are implementing such strategies. Really, the idea is, how do you accept mobile credit, if you will, as good money to transact and to get some type of value, be it buying securities or buying any other type of product. And so we'll see how that goes. Certainly, technology allows us to scale significantly, not only the exchange, but intermediaries. And so instead of trying to open one account, all of a sudden you're trying to open 1 million accounts with the same effort. As we deploy those technologies in Nigeria, it will become easier to scale and to reach people that are not within the net today.
So what specific challenges were identified?
Financial markets, globally now, as you know, have been challenged in the first 2 weeks of this year. And the mood is that the reversal of easy monetary policy is probably not going to be as rapid in the United States as we thought, because the recovery might not necessarily be as rapid and may not necessarily really carry the real economy along, because this is the first time in a long time that the U.S. is experiencing growth without wage increases, right? So the purchasing power, if you will, has not increased in real terms, and so on the basis of that, and as you know, the U.S. economy still continues to dominate global economy. We may not, in fact, we will not see it, what they term the taper tantrum. We will not see the kind of shocks that people are scared of just from that one activity. And as you know, the chair of the Federal Reserve has always maintained that she will be very moderate in the way they do this reversal. So that is one thought that really resonated with me. Another dimension that a lot of people are looking at is the whole China question. And the argument has been made that in spite of the fact that the Chinese economy is now growing at 6.7%, it slowed down from 10 or 13% several years ago, it is still the second largest economy in the world, so 6.7% is still significant. And the cue from that, for me, is if you look at IMF's projections for global growth, the next region outside of Asia that is projected to grow at anywhere near that is Sub-Saharan Africa. So it's not all doom and gloom for us. We still remain the second fastest growing region in the world. We're projected to grow at about 4%. Economies that are reliant on commodities will really be forced to look for alternative ways and more sustainable ways to drive growth in their economies.
So how will the capital markets contribute to this?
For us, we really always like to align ourselves with the strategies of the government, because we think we'll be able to get the most mileage that way, and to try to provide a financing platform, if you will, both on the debt side and on the equity side. And most of the analysis we've seen so far suggest that if you're going to finance a deficit, you know, we have revenues, right, and we have expenses, and the revenues are challenged right now, so you have a gap. If you're going to finance it, you can either finance it through borrowing or through asset sales after you've obviously optimized your expenses and removed leakages and the rest. Well, on the borrowing side, you know, if I look at what we've done on that side, the federal government is the largest issuer of bond on the Nigerian Stock Exchange.